Tubes.
We're on the tubes, everyone. So say nothing that you want.
Is that like Ray William Johnson who said YouTubes at the start of every video? No,
I don't know. I'm either too old or not lame enough. I have this awful place that I don't know all of these horrifying things and facts.
No,
because
this is like early YouTube, like 2008,
that would be
2009.
That would be
the.
I'm lame in just the right amount to be myself, but not enough to know who Ray William Johnson is. I only learned who he was about 2 years ago, actually.
Oh, yeah. No, he was like huge on early YouTube.
That's fantastic.
Basically doing, inventing the React genre.
I'm so glad. All right. Today we have a new section of the book. This is a fun one. Whole and its parts is what we're going to be hitting tonight. Let me turn the music slightly down. It's pumping out a little bit more. I fixed the audio, but I also made... There we go.
It can go on its own.
Good. That's working. That's working fine, I think. All right. Let's fucking do this. Okay. The first section is divided into chapters. We've made it through 5. We're heading into section 6. In the French, they actually don't name all the sections until you complete the book for a very good reason. For a very good reason, actually. For very fucking good reasons. But
I always do what Deleuze says at the beginning of Difference in Repetition.
What would that be?
You read the conclusions first and the introductions after you finish the book.
Yeah, I mean, that's more or less, I think, what they do here, because all of this is going to be opening up. All of this is opening up section 6. Section 6 has a very particular structure around it, and we're going to be hitting a lot of stuff. I'm glad Ben's here for a bit of it, because this is a lot of Proust. Proust. It's Proust. This is a Proust chapter. This is a Proust chapter. And it's nice to have someone else who's actually read the books. You don't have to have read all of them, but it does help to have read In Search of Lost Time. Certainly Swan's Way. That is where we're going to be focusing a good amount of our time in all of this.
Even just the first 2 chapters of Swan's Way.
Correct. Actually, it's all the very early shit in Swan's Way, which is lovely and nice and should be easy enough. Why is chat not connecting?
There's like a tiny bit of the Germantes Way stuff when he talks about Proust, like the balls and stuff when he's at like the parties. But other than that, it's all like super early Swan's Way.
Yeah, we're gonna do without YouTube chat on stream today, which is fine by me. I don't really give a shit. Let's see. Is everyone able to read? Is this readable to people? Generally speaking. Actually, let me make it higher contrast. That should help a lot. Does that help? That's better. Good. All right. I'm trying my best. I've got a color pass I need to do on it because of a lot of things. It's a long story. But this will be fine because this is where we're spending our time.
Going for that Maddox style?
It's a long story. It's all Arizona iced tea, dark and bright, but the contrast just isn't showing up. So I still have this mode for like super high contrast for streaming. I'm in a mint green kick. I'm in a Arizona iced tea kick. It's not mint green. It's Arizona iced tea, flowers and all. Come on. All right. Let me get my brain into this. Because there's so much that happens here. The section called A Whole in Its Parts follows very, very particularly. Everything up to this point basically has been putting together the 3 syntheses and how they operate. The syllogisms that are part of them. The way that they function, the way the connective, productive, the disjunctive registration and conjunctive consumption corresponds to certain energies that are transformative and that shift. Who be Ben? I think you're giving feedback.
I bet
You're good. But if everything is defined by these cuts and interruptions, which is what we've seen at this point, desire operates via interrupting, more or less. So how do we get to like the material world? How do we get to the point where these things constitute anything at all without re-smuggling in a totality, Noah, and having that come in here specifically, right? So, for example, Badiou, a big critique that I mentioned, you just got added because Noah and I have been having long conversations for like the last year about Badiou's critique, which is that Deleuze, and through his work, sort of smuggles in a unity, a one, as he does everything. And this section is more or less saying, well, actually, here's how we can do this. And here's how this actually can function when we play with it in this very, very particular way. Here's how this comes together. This is paying that debt that they've sort of built. There are 3 movements here that are going to be happening. So be watching for that as they continually reproduce and rebuild and show the 3 syntheses happening, how they work, how they get together. They're going to be specific sort of as we do this. But it's a lot. And so be ready as we go. A friend of mine entered his Badiou phase. Was he a ladies' man? Does he call himself a lady killer in his biography? Because that's a Badiou phase. It's a really good autobiography you should never read. That's real. That's real. He really does that. Eldoran read us some. It's horrifying. All right. Let's shut the fuck up, Brooks, and get to reading. In machines of desire, everything functions at the same time, but in the hiatuses and the cuts, the breakdowns and the misfirings, the intermittences and the short circuits, the distances and the fragmentations, in a sum that never reunites its parts into a whole. It is that the cuts are there productive and are themselves reunions. The disjunctions as disjunctions are inclusive. The consumptions themselves are passages, becomings and returns. It is Maurice Blanchot who knew how to pose the problem in all its rigor, at the level of a literary machine, how to produce and think fragments that have among themselves relations of difference as such, that have for relations among themselves their own difference, without reference to an original totality even lost, nor to a resultant totality even to come. Only the category of multiplicity, employed as substantive and surpassing the multiple no less than the one, surpassing the predicative relation of the one and the multiple, is capable of accounting for desiring production. Desiring production is pure multiplicity, that is, affirmation irreducible to unity. We are at the age of partial objects, of bricks and remains. We no longer believe in these false fragments which, like the pieces of the antique statue, await being completed and reglued to compose a unity, which is equally the unity of origin. We no longer believe in an original totality, nor in a totality of destination. We no longer believe in the grayness of a bland evolutionary dialectic, which claims to pacify the pieces because it rounds their edges. We believe in totalities only to the side, and if we encounter such a totality to the side of parts, it is a whole of these parts, but which does not totalize them, a unity of all these parts, but which does not unify them, and which adds itself to them as a new part composed apart. Quote, it surges forth, but applying itself this time to the ensemble as such a piece composed apart, born of an inspiration. Says Proust of the unity of Balzac's work, but equally of his own. And it is striking, in the literary machine of In Search and Lost Time, to what extent all the parts are produced as asymmetrical sides, broken erections, closed boxes, non-communicating vessels, partitionings, where even contiguities are distances, and distances affirmations, puzzle pieces that do not come from the same but from different puzzles, violently inserted into one another, always local and never specific, and their discordant edges always forced, profaned, imbricated into one another, always with remains. It is the schizoid work par excellence. One would say that guilt, declarations of guilt, are there only to laugh. In Kleinian terms, one would say that the depressive position is only a cover for a deeper schizoid position. For the rigors of the law express only apparently the protestation of the one, and find on the contrary their true object in the absolution of fragmented universes, where the law reunites nothing in whole, but on the contrary measures and distributes the gaps, the dispersions, the bursts of that which draws its innocence from madness. It is why, to the apparent theme of guilt, there is intertwined in Proust a wholly other theme that denies it, that of vegetable ingenuity in the partitioning of sexes, in the encounters of Charlus, as in the sleeps of Albertine. There where flowers reign and the innocence of madness reveals itself, proven madness of Charlus or supposed madness of Albertine. Thank you, Rudd, for that picture. I'm not sure I'm going to let you do anything more at this point. What the fuck are you doing, my friend? What are you doing? What in the fuck? Oh, ball sack. Okay, you are something as a person, that's for sure. You are something. I don't even know what the fuck, dude. Anyway, Jesus Christ. Fucking seriously. Oh, now you fucked my brain up. Thank you for that. Jesus Christ, to the wall with you. At least the accent is over the E. Haha, Noah, calling back to an earlier conversation. Good job. Line by line, let's do it. In machines of desire, everything functions at the same time, but in the hiatuses and the cuts, the breakdowns and the misfirings, the intermittences and the short circuits, the distances and the fragmentations, in a sum that never reunites the parts into a whole. My AI video is actually about this, my last one, about how understanding works, because this is more or less them going through how we see and understand the world, how it operates, how that comes to be. This goes back to a little bit earlier when we were talking about desiring machines, and the process of the machines of desire, that it is not ever that they do a thing. It's also not that breaking down or an interruption stops it. The stopping, the breaking down is actually the functioning. That is where we actually find, like, the machine's functioning is the breaking down, right? This is like fundamental to this. So as they sort of start making their way through this, we're talking about, again, the opening of the entire book. It functions in fits and starts, all of that. The system of cuts, that is all of this. All of this is again, drawing on the semiotics that we've talked about, the semiotics of Yelmslev, and Guattari and his work in that field. But here it's said a little bit more specifically, because it is easy to understand that when we talk about, because words work as they do, we have the clay of chaos and we're carving into it. Oh, there's a clay. Oh, it's a thing. Oh, we start with a unity. No. Well, yeah, but you end up with all this stuff that sort of comes back together, and that's the whole. And it's like, no, it's not that. The entire point is actually that this constantly is moving in a different place, that this is something that never reunites, that it is fundamentally the breaks the distances, the fragments, the cuts, the cut itself, the gulf, the distance that is actually where the functioning is. The functioning cannot exist in a thing. A rock doesn't do anything. Two rocks clank. One cell doesn't do anything. Two brain cells rub together and you get this stupid reading group. The Proust in this section, close. We'll get to it. We'll get to the Proust. They say directly, it is that the cuts are there. It is the cuts there are productive. I probably have that a little bit. It's weird in French, but it's the cuts there, like hic et nunc, here and now, that the cuts are productive and are themselves reunions. This is like the paradox they're laying out that we are going to be sort of building out as we go. It's not a contrary of connection to say that something is cut. In fact, the cut is the connection. These are the same thing. This is the discussion of Heil and Flux from 2 chapters ago, right? Every machine that exists is a cut of a flow relative to the machine that it is connected to. The machine then in turn is also the flow relative to the machine connecting it and cutting it. So cutting and coupling are to the outside, seen as a single moment or operation, but these are moments in very particular ways of two different sides. And so they say here, the cuts are productive and are themselves reunions. That's intended, again, to sort of play back on the previous. The sum never reunites its parts into a whole. The cuts are productive and are themselves the reunion. The sum is not what reunites everything into a whole. The cuts are themselves the reunions. Cut like lacerate or cut like severe. Closer to severe, it's break, cut, interruption, full shut off, and slicing off. We use the example, as they did, of a deli slicer slicing off. Like it's cuts for a flow that we presume is sort of coming behind it, right? But this is playing into, and we're going to start seeing a lot more of this, and I am sorry to say this, this is playing Lacan. Very specifically. For Lacan, because again, this all comes from Yomslev, Guattari, and then here, and to not mention that Lacan is the guy who's like, hey, we have this signifying chain, and the thing that is constitutive of signification is the cut. That's the cut. It's a big deal to him. It's a huge deal as he plays. So the cuts are foundational to this. We'll get to why this is them laying up like a whole bunch of stuff up front. Again, just join the journey. This is making a lot of claims they're going to be spending time substantiating. So if you're not following, that's cool. It's cool. The disjunctions as disjunctions are inclusive. This is the functioning of desiring production when we talk about this. Disjunctions it's a logical operation, a disjunction, either or. What that means very specifically is there is the exclusive or inclusive disjunction within logic. A thing can be A or B. Now that can also mean A or B. Like I'm adding emphasis. Logic is in this one tougher. That's more inclusive. Is Brooks, am I a dad or a streamer? Yes. And inclusive. These things aren't exclusively breaking things apart. Am I or inclusive? Exclusive disjunctions are ones that are breaking that off. So if, for example, I say, am I a dad or am I a person? No, you're dad. You're dad because of my relation, whatever it may be, but that's saying this is an exclusive disjunction. Very, very specific. This is a difference between the differentiating disjunctions of daddy, mommy, me, of Oedipus that we're going to come to learn a ton about. I've been spending time with Noah on this, and I had to reread a bunch of stuff. So it's like the disjunction of alive or dead. the disjunction of mom, daddy, man, woman. These things, it's not that here the disjunctions are overcome by some dialectic sublimation of inclusion. It's important to remember disjunctions here, where there is the split, the options are there. They're not exclusive. Desire is, at this point, inclusively disjunctive. Okay? And go read and listen to earlier sections. We'll get there. The consumptions themselves are passages, becomings, and returns. All right, so that's the third synthesis. So we have the cuts are productive in themselves reunions, disjunctions are inclusive, and the consumptions themselves are passages. The consumptions are becomings. The consumptions are returns, which is very particular language that is very, very much intentional. It doesn't read as well in English, which is annoying as shit. Becomings and returns, devenir's revenir, is sort of play. It's re-becoming and then coming back. There's a Nietzschean resonance to it that's being played here. This is very much vicious circle, like screaming at us. At this point, yes, it's very much Nietzsche and the vicious circle here. Very much. The eternal return to difference and all that. But specifically, the language in French reads just so much better. Devenir and revenir that he's playing with. It's becoming, re-becoming, coming back, right? This is the thing that they're playing with. We're getting through this quick because I want to get to the Blanchot, because their examples of this, I think, elucidate it much more clearly. It is Maurice Blanchot. So before we get in, these are the three syntheses talked through in terms of like their functioning and what they do and their parts, their things. So to continue, it is Maurice Blanchot who knew how to pose the problem in all its rigor at the level of literary machine, how to produce, think, fragments that have among themselves relations of difference as such, that have for relations among themselves their own difference, without reference to an original totality even lost, or to a resultant totality even to come. Okay. This is also Nietzsche. It's a Blanchot talking about Nietzsche, but this is about Nietzsche. There's a lot of Nietzsche in this fucking book, by the way. The infinite, God damn, I can't remember the name of the book. Doesn't matter. Talking about Nietzsche, playing with this sort of thing. Blanchot is asking how a fragment, a specific fragment, can be thought without the aphorism becoming either the debris of a lost whole. This is about Nietzschean fragments. Nietzsche wrote a lot of stuff. There's a little bit of fragments everywhere. So do we read the fragments on their own? Are they considered as, oh, there must be some bigger thing here? If you read a Nietzschean fragment, like a little tiny bit of an aphorism, do you read it presuming there is a larger thing here? Or do you read it presuming it's the seed of a future thought? This is the way that we take in when we are informed and told this is a piece of a thing, this is a part of a thing. We presume a lot more. I brought up a moment ago and everyone's laughing in chat about it, but when we talk about how a flow is cut and we see that, the example they give of the deli slicer and the ham hock, you have a ham hock, you do one slice, you on the other side, if you don't see anything, you just see the slice, you presume there's like an infinite ham hock. You don't know how far it is, how early it is, anything. You go to a deli sometimes, see how it works. You don't know how far they're going. You see the slice, you presume the whole. This is, but it, again, is there a slice is also the other part of the conversation that's worth having. What does a slice mean? How does it, well, that's the question here. That's the question that is at the center of this for Blanchot, because like the exigency of the fragments, that Nietzsche has, that they're playing with inside of this, is being played with in a way that Blanchot mostly refused in a lot of their work, in a lot of his work. Blanchot was not really super huge on a lot of this, like thinking of things not in multiplicity, big in this. But this is like playing in a very specific question. If you have all of these fragments from Nietzsche, how do you produce and think fragments that have among themselves relations of difference and such? You see the fragments, you can relate them. If I were to give you all the fragments, you can find that meaning. You can see, well, they could have been part of this. They might have been this. That have for relations among themselves their own difference, without reference to an original totality even lost, nor to a resultant totality to come. That's the Blanchot line showing through. They have their own relations. The fragments themselves have meaning. You don't need to believe that there is this other totality. You don't need to believe a totality to come. These fragments are fragments in relation to each other. That's the play. I cannot tell what's happening in chat. That's fine. You people. We'll continue because, again, they continue with examples and building this out. But that's the idea. Which Blanchot piece? It's Blanchot's work on Nietzsche and one sec. I have the PDF somewhere.
The Infinite Conversation, right?
I think so. Yes, The Infinite Conversation. Yeah, The Infinite Conversation.
That book is so long, by the way. Like, just throwing that out there.
It's like, not enjoyable to read either. It's not an enjoyable read. There are footnotes in Anti-Oedipus that are 100% easy to go, oh, that's what they're talking about. And you can go find that section. It is 600, 700 pages, 800 pages. And I don't think in English it's shorter. I think it's longer. Like a lot longer. I think it's another 100 or 200 on top of that. Blanchot is an acquired taste. That's a very nice way of putting it. And again, Blanchot would really probably super object to how they're being used here, but they don't give a fuck. That's not a deal for these guys. The whole point is that the fragments themselves have their own difference in relations of difference as such, as well as their own. Without reference to a totality that is lost or a totality to come. You have fragments. It doesn't have to presume these things. They have their own internal difference that is producing this. Only the category multiplicity, employed as substantive and surpassing the multiple no less than the one, surpassing the predicative relation of the one and the multiple, is capable of accounting for desiring production. Desiring production is pure multiplicity. That is affirmation irreducible to unity.
Actually, Brooke, quick question.
Sure.
Do you think that this is referring to how in philosophy, when we're dealing with the one and the many, when we look at people like Parmenides, we read them in terms of fragments, and how from my notes, I forgot about the Infinite Conversation, but I believe Blanchot talks about Heraclitus's fragments there. Like, do you think this has to deal with like how we can treat a fragment of their works, usually it's like very poetic, as a whole almost, or we shouldn't totalize, Parmenides or Heraclitus or something? I'm just kind of curious if you see that tie.
I mean, I think what you're arguing is the point that they're making, that you can do this. But again, the Blanchot specifically is doing odd experimentation here. That's kind of what they're referring to when they say, and they have that line, knew how to pose the problem in all its rigor at the level of literary machine. This is the question that can produce multiple outcomes or endings and all of these things, right? The Proust, for example, like we're going to be seeing in a moment Proust, and we're going to be following a through line, also Proust in signs, also Proust is like everywhere in Deleuze, honestly. But the model of desiring production at the level of the literary machine is kind of what they're also getting at. I'm very hesitant to say that they're like talking about the fragments themselves being in. Again, Blanchot says a lot. I don't think they're taking all of that from Blanchot. I think they're being very specific here with what they're taking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I'm actually just like control effing fragments throughout the infinite conversation. And it is said in the English, you never know with the French, but it's said in English a ton. And it's like in reference to Nietzsche. It looks like it's in reference to Heraclitus and Plato and like all of these other philosophers. So,
but
I
all
guess
of those
I wouldn't-
references, if you read them, like the specific passage they're citing about the fragments of Oculus and all this other stuff from Nietzsche that were amazing reading, but Blanchot's problem is addressed literally in the sentence that I've highlighted, because there's a huge amount of work behind this. This is Riemannian geometry and the manifold, and how manifold geometry works as a thing. This is Husserl and Bergson's appropriations. This is like in Bergsonism or DNR as a thing, because the whole point here, why does this keep removing my highlight? That's so frustrating. The whole point here is fundamentally that the multiplicity, like the multiple, is not a predicate of anything. It is the substantive. It's the substantive altogether, right? So I'll get to what the one is, Anton, in a second. The dialectical tradition that exists that they are jumping into at this point, right? Which is Plato through Hegel and then on, and we've still got this shit going today. Basically takes the multiple and defines it predicative against the one. That unity is the measure that the multiple is defined by. That we start with one, or we're aware of what one is, and anything that's more than that is the multiple. So we start with that, and unity is the measure, right? Affirmation irreducible to unity, like that. I feel like Nietzsche said that. I feel like that's literally out of Nietzsche. If it's not, it's Klosowski for sure. Or, I mean, all these guys have said some version of it, but like, that's the thing they're playing with. Like, I think he literally talks about this in Nietzschean philosophy too, because the whole point is that the multiple is here not disguised as one. This literally is written almost as an answer to Badiou and you and me, Noah, as a thing. Like, this is that thing. It's we need to start with the multiple and measure the one against that. Instead, it's substantive of it. Right? No?
Yeah, correct. I mean, this is the best. I mean, to me, this is just the best section of chapter 1. I mean, this is just so good.
It is until you get to the next problem, right? Yeah. Until the next thing. But yes.
But I do think that they are kind of answering that Badiouian critique here completely by, they are very clear that they're not upholding the one. They're reframing the whole problem in terms of the whole and its parts. And I think that's just such a brilliant move. And also, no more reminding people of my Badiou phase, dude. It was like 4 months long. I'm over it now.
I will be reminding people of it because it was a good phase, because it forced one of the more important questions that no one really talks about, which is like, what exactly is a fucking multiple? What exactly is the one? People take that stuff like I am lightly giving you shit about it because it's intended to be that way. But like, the reality of that position is so foundational to all of this. If you're reading Anti-Oedipus and you haven't made the leap to what a philosophy of difference is versus a philosophy of identity, then you're still in process of understanding what exactly this book is about. Because until you've made that leap, until you've said, hey, the one, which is when I say chaos, or Guattari writes chaosophy, or Spinoza talks about the substance, like God or whatever. Do you think we're talking about a thing? Well, then you're still in that other way of looking at this. You're still in the one. And it's easy to backdoor. And a lot of philosophers that have come before have failed to make the leap. And that, I think, is why Badiou's critique rings so hard for so many people, is because until you make that, okay, we're going to start with this thing of difference. Difference is going to be the substantive element of the one, but it is not the one as a thing. Desire and production, pure multiplicity, affirmation, irreducible to a unity. And that shift is so fucking important to understanding the rest of their project. Like this is why I think, and I know I give you maybe too much shit on it. I'll try to avoid a little bit, but I think it's incredibly important.
I mean, if I can add something here, I mean, when we're dealing with Deleuze and Guattari in this section in particular, the one and the many as a philosophical problem is going back so far. You know, why is there something instead of nothing? Why is there this instead of that? Does the many emanate from the one? Did the one create the many? Is the one the many itself? So when they're dealing with this question, when we're dealing with people like Badiou or critiques, they're going to try and get at Deleuze by trying to say, well, what's the basis for desiring production? What's the foundation for it? Is desiring production, or is the body without organs, or is the virtual whatever, is that just a new one? But that's not understanding what they're doing, because they're trying to say that itself, that process alone, is also equated to the foundation, yes. But it's not a fixed foundation or an individual thing. It's correct. Always going and going and going. And that's I think just very difficult for a lot of Western philosophy to wrap its brain around a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, that's what we're dealing with.
Not going to disagree. And Arachne, yes, Badiou made a lot of other claims that are not as interesting, I think would just be how I'd phrase that response. Badiou made a lot of other claims about Deleuze that are a lot less interesting. This one is important because it's literally foundational to a philosophy of difference. Like, it's one of those things that it's easy to do a Platonist reading of Anti-Oedipus. We see a lot of those on YouTube and honestly in academia, sadly. That's because if you don't make that leap, if you don't start from this other position and understand Deleuze is working with a fundamentally different image of thought than not, it's a lot. And yeah, Mandy Moore is right. The one in English really suck. It really sucks to have this translated. Like, this is really tough because in English as a thing doesn't have a lot of double entendre. It doesn't have a lot of play in the words. The words mean that thing. It's that. The one. Oh, like Highlander. Yes. Like, no. And it's like that kind of thing becomes really complicated. When you say Platonist, you mean Plato, Platonism, or I don't, there's no difference as far as I'm concerned. Both are representational. So any representational system of thinking, it doesn't matter. They have a fundamentally different way of seeing the world. All right. And we're getting to a great little fun line. We are at the age of partial objects, of bricks and remains. So if you haven't read Melanie Klein has a concept that, and she's very specific about it in her writing. Other people say, oh, partial objects, that's taken from Melanie Klein. And that's sort of true. But Melanie Klein talked about part objects, which is not the same thing. It doesn't have the same conjugation. It doesn't have the same meaning. It's not the same setup. Partial objects is not the same thing as part objects. Part objects is Melanie Klein's thing. The parts of the body, various parts, part objects. So they're parts of a thing. They presume the whole. Partial objects here, very different beast. This is taking Melanie Klein's part objects and stripping her developmental destination, right? Because for her, like, part objects, they belong to the paranoiac schizo configuration and is about being integrated. Part objects are objects that are presumed to be part of a whole. Presumed, the whole is presumed, the one is presumed. But we're at the age of partial objects, which is different. It's an age. It's not a stage. This is an age. It's an epoch, right? This is an entire thing, a completely different beast. of bricks and remains. Bricks has not there again. There's a lot of play here, but it's very specifically about building, where all the parts, the building units of everything. Bricks are going to be used a lot in the semiotics of things, but we're in the place where it's about that level. That it's not a house. Is a brick part object of a house? Yeah, it'd be weird to fucking say. That's really weird to say, actually. If you build a house out of bricks, yes, sort of, but you wouldn't say that. Instead, you can see that, oh yeah, there's a house, and it's the whole, and it's parts objects, it's partial objects, it's bricks and remains. This is a very specific set of languages that they're using. In French, it's not remains, it's restes. It's from the third synthesis, the copia rest, the residue, the remains, the remainder of bricks and remainders, slightly different word meaning. I like the wording of epoch of, but what was the transition point? I don't know what you're asking. You're asking what came before? The despotic. Capital is the age of bricks and remains. The remains. What remains, the residue after the fact as a thing. And yes, Mandy Moore, that's exactly the point. A house is made of bricks, yes, but a brick is not presumed to be part of a house. I can build a wall. I can build a temple. I can build a shit house. I can build a garden. I can build a fence. Like a lot of things. I can build a little tiny, like a shrine. I don't know. Like you can do a lot of stuff. D&D intended partial objects to be associated only with one. Yes. Yes, we're of the age of this. We'll get to how capitalism works, but yes. Yes, capitalism. That's the point. Capitalism. We no longer believe in these false fragments, which, like the pieces of the antique statue, await being completed and reglued to compose a unity, which is equally the unity of origin. It's a despotic, just as a thing. This is so many comments on so many different thinkers, but this is like Freud, for example, very, very, very much. But this is like the Oedipal operation in general. This is how the simulacra of things got built. The ancient statue, antique statues. You would do the first chip or the first part of the thing being built. It was awaiting being completed. There was a point of completion. There was an end point. And all these pieces, this presumption is also the unity of origin. I thought it was meant as a general feature of desire and assemblages, not a description of particular stage of history. Okay. I can make my arguments of why, but the big one would be that this is the time in history where capital, or the pieces, or the bricks, or the figura, the smallest pieces of potential construction elements that can be put together, are the ones that rule. That's where capital sits. That's what capital is. It's the Nietzschean coins that have they've been rubbed and used so often that we forgot that they were ever struck. The despotic didn't have that. The striking is the point. And if you ever had just this pure form of trade, it wouldn't work out. Prior to that, the prehistorical, which was not a system of exchange, but excessive debts, but not, again, built on fragments. Instead, it was codes. Very much. Very much. But we no longer believe in these false fragments. No longer believe in them. The dialectic, it's such a fun phrasing. We no longer believe, like they just nail this. We no longer believe in an original totality, nor in a totality of destination. this is being eliminated as part of the ontology. We no longer believe in the grayness of a bland evolutionary dialectic, which claims to pacify the pieces because it rounds their edges. This is Hegel straight up, and I would argue Engels a little bit as well, and some Marx actually. They're moving it all into this gray compound, this gray average, a gray here, very much evoking the average. You mix all the colors together and you get gray. It's kind of the dialectic doesn't refute fragments. It's not what it does in anyone's writing. The dialectic fundamentally sands them down, wears them down, rounds them off like rounds their edges like a rock tumbler, more or less, right? That make sure these things don't catch on anything, so that way they can be placed properly next to each other, so they can be set up as they do, versus the discordance, which we're going to be talking about in a moment, but rounding the edges versus the edges being forced. It's kind of what they're touching at here. Did that make sense earlier, Josh's? I don't want to dismiss the comment. I see.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just that. Well, what would you, if you were to place partial objects within a particular epoch, what would you not place? What would you assign a more general role?
So let's be specific about what the meaning is then. I see the confusion. This is not saying there are never other partial objects ever. That's not what they're saying. This is the same way that they talk about how there was no incest, for example, or that the body without organs didn't actually reveal itself until capitalism. The way that functional elements show up, and there's probably shit going on that we can't identify until the next sort of big change. But this is not saying there never were desiring machines. It's just, this is not the era, that was not the era of desiring machines. This is not the era of fragments. It was not the era of this. That wasn't the thing.
Has it become that era because of D&G?
No, that's capitalism. That's capitalism. Capitalism is because of how capitalism functions and moves down into desire machines, becomes imminent to it. The axiomatization of desire and how desire machines function in this way. We're now in the place where all of the pieces. If I were to make, and I could go on for a while, but AI is a great example of this. It's pure figura that is being removed of any expression because of all the pieces. You're looking at a screen, or you're hearing digital ins and outs of figura that are not frequencies. You don't actually hear frequencies. That's what it gets turned into. What you're actually hearing or seeing are bits that are being transmitted into and converted into visual pixels or quick bursts of digital information. It's not analog anymore. Each of those little bits is itself the piece, the bricks that make up everything. That's the difference. The bricks that make up everything is this, right? They're asignifying blocks. To just take from Millepoteau as an example. This is what they're talking about. That we are in a time now where the brick is what is not a shard of a broken whole. That is, prior to this, the understanding of things because of how the socius functioned. We understood things as part of the broken whole. Does that make sense?
How would you relate this to a distinction between the molar and the molecular? Where do we locate partial objects with respect to that distinction?
I mean, well, they're always molecular. They're always molecular.
It's just a regime thing, right? Like molar objects are always just masses of molecular objects.
And in turn, molecular objects are also, again, the whole in its parts, but we're starting with difference. So that the shift that they're pointing out here very specifically is stepping away from the old hylomorphic, this is part of or was part of something, the way Blanchot is having the crisis in literary terms about Nietzsche's fragments. We conceptualize fragments differently. We understand these things differently. The way that things function now, we're in a time of bricks. We're in a time of partial objects, of bricks and remainders. We don't believe in false fragments anymore that, this statue's broken, clearly because the rest had to be there at some time. We don't have an original totality. We don't have a totality destination. Capital doesn't. They're going to get into this in chapter 3, but this is because of how capital functions and falls back on it. It is, again, not that there was never partial objects before. This shit's been working. This is just being revealed by everything sort of how it functions.
It's like that Ozymandias statue, right? Like we can think of like the whole object that it's sliced off of, but really it's just a fragment.
Does that make sense, Josh's? I mean, again, this and the next paragraph are actually going to touch it, but please.
Just one more question.
Please.
So, even if, having said that capitalism is the epic of these partial objects, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is an awareness of that there's an articulation, an explicit articulation within capitalism of that, other than through
Capital.
D&Gs.
I mean, capital is that. Capital has no meaning itself. It's purely functionary. It is purely that thing. It's purely figura.
Well, okay, so among those that maybe that are not able to have a perspective on capital that D&G do, would they nevertheless be able to have that perspective on partial objects? Is that something that they recognize, even as they don't recognize the approach or perspective on this that D&G are providing? You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. So I would say every person is going to end up being a little bit too unique to say yes, everyone. Mm-hmm. So I would say probably no. But again, there is no such thing as just capitalism. Everyone is in some form of all of these things, and all of us are being constantly produced by how we deal with it. There are anarchistic, anachronistic things that are falling over. There are complete breakdowns in other ways. So it's not so much that everyone is in this place, but on the other hand, this is how capitalism fundamentally is functioning right now. And again, I think most people have because of how representation is taking hold, because of how the trap of desire has been set, I could probably it would take me a little bit of time. I could argue that, yes, this is generally how people experience things now. It would take me a little bit of time, though. No? Hello? Josh's?
Oh, you're talking about me? Yeah. No, yeah. I think I understand where you're going with this. Yeah. I mean, what you said helps a lot.
It's about how production becomes organized primarily. And that's what, again, we're way early for this discussion, but this is what they're leaving into the idea of, like, how is the production of everything organized? Let's say we have our like ontological register of things. That's the partial objects of the world. These are the bricoleur, the bricks, the remainders. This is what production is, kind of always and everywhere. Like, that's just basic. That's true of the savage prehistorical machine as much as the capitalist machine, as much as the despotic machine, right? That's the thing. The three syntheses aren't like limited to index historically. That's not really how they sort of describe them. Where they say it this way, in this sense, the age of is more of a rhetorical, like, cool way to say it. Like, it always has been the age of bricks. It's more of a rhetorical thing. But from like a historical materialist register, which I kind of was speaking from as a thing, and again, this is why I think it matters for capitalism, there is a social machine in only one of them that decodes and deterritorializes flows, that takes codes and strips them off of desire entirely. And that code previously referred to production of the socius as a whole. Like, that's what the code did. It referred production to this whole. It referred production to a whole of the earth or the despot. But capital is not a whole. No one would say this. Like, fucking Adam Smith didn't say this. Bitcoin nutcases wouldn't say this. Like, that's the deal. Capitalism is, in how it is formed and in its formation and in its production, exposing the brick nature of production, that it runs on that it generalizes that. Schizophrenia, as an example, which is this limit of how capitalism is able to produce people at a fundamental level, is, again, something produced, something made, and is sort of the truth of capital, but it is based on this sort of understanding of the bricks of things. So we could say age here, and that's what I was more meaning it has, because we're in the epoch, we're in the time where this operation of things makes these partial objects legible, the bricks legible, the way Marx talked about how the anatomy of the man is the key to the anatomy of the ape, or that bourgeois makes labor thinkable for the first time. It's not that labor, like, Marx didn't invent labor, right? Like, just so everyone knows, Marx didn't invent labor. People have been working for a long time, but the thinkability of it is also not something Marx did. That's capitalism revealing that labor is this thing that can be abstracted, that we can talk about it. The reason it's kind of a hung up here, and I get the language, I'm probably being a little fast and loose with it, is that capitalism doesn't let us experience that. So it is not that I am experiencing the age of bricks. I don't really mean it in that sense, and I'm being a little fast and loose with my language. It's a fair thing as I'm talking through this and I'm saying this. Like, this is it's fair. Any private singular person, anyone here, this all of you little egos as a thing, you experience the world via representation. That's it. It's manufactured and consumed in that way. So the experience of any whole person is unified in this sense. Like, there are exceptions, obviously, but that is a thing. So no, it's not someone who's going to be doing that as a thing, but like, this to me is like Lukács, History and Class Consciousness, right? Where he writes about how capitalism fundamentally fragments. Like, that's the thing it does. Like, we're able to see that Jameson talks about postmodern fragmentation in kitsch as an example. These are the things that the wording, as people talk about things breaking up. Oh, we used to have a community, but everything's just fallen apart. People talk about things, and and I more mean colloquially, the experience of these things, we kind of have an understanding of how fragmented we've become. Movements and philosophical traditions, or political traditions, or families, or gender, or whatever it may be. All these things are fragmenting. And I think that people generally have and again, more colloquial, but this is very much how, not just on the critical theory side or philosophy side, but this is the language people use, is fragmenting. I put all that together myself here in that way. So yes, it's weird, Josh's, but that's kind of the idea for me and how I'm taking this. Does that make sense? Sorry for the long ramble, everybody. Am I making a mistake by trying to apply Deleuze's treatment of partial objects in DNR? Is conception of it fundamentally different in AO? It's not fundamentally different. he's going after different things. The books are about different things. So it's an application question, I think, for that. Like DNR, you could talk about how they play, but DNR is not trying to talk about how fascism exists or how the social world comes to be. Instead, it's, again, going through how we kind of turn things into representative wholes, amongst other things. But he's attacking a very specific problem and building that out. Partial objects are very much the same in both. How they function and what they do based on different syntheses is a different beast, because they play differently in different registers. I think. Again, ignore me too. I'm an idiot. I'm going to continue reading though. So eventually we'll get to Proust. We believe in totalities only to the side. And if we encounter such a totality to the side of a parts, it is a whole of these parts, but which does not totalize them. A unity of all these parts, but which does not unify them, and which adds itself to them as a new part composed apart. There you go. The positive, affirming doctrine of what we're going through here. I lost so many viewers just now. That was a long ramble. I'm very sorry, everybody. I thought it was a good conversation to have. Okay. To the side. It is, you have all the parts, the multiplicity of things. One of the things that the multiplicity will produce, and it's crazy. Do you want to know what it is? It's a whole. It produces a whole. Not that kind of whole. The whole of them, the unity of them. Sorry, 2 seconds. Why am I getting so many calls? What the fuck is going on? All right. You have a bunch of parts and partial objects. And along with those, we understand that there's a whole. Like, hey, I'm Brooks. I'm unifying all these things. There's Noah. I'm unifying all these things. Oh, there's a computer. I'm unifying all these things. Yes, you are. But the unity isn't a unity that's collapsing everything into a one. But instead, the whole is actually an affirmatively generated partial thing itself alongside all the other partial things. It is not something that subsumes, consumes, overwhelms, controls anything. But the whole is another part. I repaired my Jeep the other day. It's great. I love that I did that. It makes me happy that I did that. However, I didn't repair the entire, I did a little bit of wiring on one of the harnesses. The whole is a part alongside the parts. Okay? The whole is a part alongside the parts. This is not behind it. There wasn't a whole that you're seeing the parts of, and there's not a whole to come that you're seeing the parts of. That's not the thing. It is another part, another piece produced like all the other parts right next to it, like hanging out, chilling. It's part of the whole thing is the wholeness. The whole of a part that does not totalize is the point, logically. That's it. A unity that does not unify. The unity is a thing, a partial object alongside the rest. Okay? Is everyone following that? And the reason In Search of Lost Time is like my favorite example of this, and he was going to end up saying it at some point. In Search of Lost Time isn't a book. I mean, it is, but it's not. And also every book inside of it is not really a book unto itself, and it's not really a full story. And if you haven't read it, you have no idea why I'm saying this, but I'm being completely accurate. No one who has read In Search of Lost Time will go, ah, yes, that's quite a story. That's not how it works.
The first book In Search of Lost Time is called Swan's Way. And if I were to summarize Swan's Way, is about a man who gets ready for bed, goes to bed, wakes up, has some tea, rides the train, reads the newspaper, and goes into town. And it's one of the best books written in the 1800s.
Easily. And I think you could simplify it by saying a man goes and does stuff. And I think it'd be fine. Like, it's true. There's a great Monty Python sketch where they have the yearly championships of summarizing Proust, where they try to summarize In Search of Lost Time. It's fucking great. If you haven't seen it, it makes me laugh every time I watch it. Because you can't. Like, that's like the point of the books, is that you can't. It's a part, the whole of Swan's Way itself. Like, just calling it Swan's Way is just a thing alongside the other things. Calling it In Search of Lost Time, that is productive with all the other parts. So are all the other parts productive with it. What was he thinking about while doing that? Oh, no. He's thinking about, like, going to work. And also, random shit that he sees. Can I link to it? I will link to, it's one of my favorite sketches. Summarize Proust. Makes me happy. It is shit quality, don't care. It's great. Makes me smile. Summarize Proust competition. And it's like the first book through the 7th book, and he's got to get through all of them in under a minute. And he doesn't even like get through the first 2 pages of the first book. It's so great. Nerd jokes. But that's the thing is, the whole produced alongside it is the point. Like, this is the deal. A peripheral totality, right? Proust and Signs goes through this at length. Obviously it does. But that's kind of the deal here. It keeps resetting to the top of the page. It's very strange. But let's read Proust talking about Balzac, because why the fuck not? It surges forth, but applying itself this time to the ensemble as such a piece composed apart, born of an inspiration. Says Proust of the unity of Balzac's work, but equally of his own. Okay. This is from the Prisoner. Proust's work, talking about Balzac. And I think with Albertine, if I remember the scene. And the idea of sort of the human comedy, the human comedy, Balzac's writing, is that, like, Balzac figured out this unity of his works down the road, right? And he would have these inspirations and this flash. And so the unity of them is not, and here's the quote I have as the rest of this, is not factitious, perhaps even more real for being ulterior. This retrospective illumination of what made Balzac's works appear and become a thing that applies itself to the ensemble as one more inspired fragment is the point. And he goes through a handful of these. Proust talks about the same thing with Wagner, for example, and D&G are going to be commenting on that as well, a lot. But Proust's own work did the same thing. This afterward claim of all of these things being together. The point would be that this is like this flash, this inspirational moment of a thing produced alongside the rest. That's what they're saying here. When do you know a painting is done? Well, you know when you understand what the painting is, more or less, because that's the flash. Oh, there it is. And it is striking in the literary machine of In Search of Lost Time to what extent all the parts are produced as asymmetrical sides, broken erections, closed boxes, non-communicating vessels, partitionings, where even contiguities are distances, and distances affirmations, puzzle pieces that do not come from the same, but from different puzzles, violently inserted into one another, always local and never specific, and their discordant edges always forced, profaned, imbricated into one another, always with remains. Okay. More or less, this is Proust and Signs' second half basically summarized, like, really well, to be perfectly frank. It's a very short book. You should read it. It's a very good book. Boxes and vessels. There are two major sort of things that continually underlie these various chapters. These are, for Deleuze, as he writes, boxes that contain contents that are, as he says, disproportionate to their containers. So you have a name that is also sort of a landscape. Albertine, for example, and the beach as a thing. You have vessels that hold, as he talks about them, incommunicable neighboring worlds. There's a lot of stuff happening in these. The whole of all of these things are asymmetrical. They're filled with shit that doesn't really fit together. None of this stuff plays. It does not work on its own. If you read 2 or 3 sentences of this, it doesn't work as an entire work. This is true of a lot of great writing, to be perfectly frank. It doesn't work as a thing because things don't make sense or land against each other. Not cleanly. This isn't Lost. Actually, maybe it is a little bit. The TV show. This is writing where you actually have the whole that hasn't been pre-decided. You're sort of building as you go, and things do or don't fit. And somehow you find this sort of way that things function through the distances, through the breaks, through these things forced together, and something remains. Always there is a remainder. And it happens to be this like opposition to what it seems like it would be in the first place. The interplay that he's making here is very specific, but it is playing into all of these elements from kind of across the board throughout everything. As Arachne says, Proust and Signs shows how deeply Deleuze studied Proust. I cannot imagine reading In Search of Lost Time more than 2 or 3 times in my life. I feel like Deleuze must have read it 15 to 20 times, maybe more. It's not an easy read, and it is not a fast read. If you read it fast, fuck you. Like fuck you. Fuck you for reading that book fast, you asshole. That's not the deal. There's so much happening, but the point is not that, and this is why I like the way he's talking about the puzzle pieces. It isn't that these are puzzle pieces that are part of if you ever bought a puzzle, it's cut out. You've got, 100% that everything fits perfectly into one spot or another. But if you were to mix 2 puzzles together and say, all right, figure it out, you'd be forcing them together and there would be remainder pieces. You could end up with a whole entire puzzle. It may not look right. It may not be, but you can absolutely, but that's what everything is. Everything is that. Everything is the same thing as forcing these puzzle pieces together in a puzzle that doesn't work and then saying, this is my finished puzzle. Everything's that. We just don't notice that we've left pieces out or that we've forced things together. We've not cared about this. The line that he uses here, and it's really always local and never specific. Always local, never specific. Connections that exist in the vapor that is the desiring production of things, right? Desiring machines, partial objects, the vapor of that, it's always connecting to connecting. So it's right there. It's not, oh, I like that idea, I'm going to hang out and connect with that desiring machine over there. No, it's always local. And it is never specific. There is no specificity of what the whole is, right? In the logical sense of like species specific, right? This is Deleuze is pulling on that in a lot of different ways. It's never that. Their discordant edges are always forced, profaned, imbricated into another. Profaned is another really interesting word that he uses a lot in Proust and Signs, and he really, 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 really wants to play with. There is a sort of with it, like a desacredizing. There's a sexuality in it. Like Proust's sexuality, he uses this in Proust and Signs. God, I need to go back and reread that. I love it. I'm going to continue, though. It is the schizoid work par excellence. One would say that guilt, declarations of guilt, are there only to laugh. In Kleinian terms, one would say that the depressive position is only a cover for deeper schizoid. Okay. The recherche, the great work of guilt. We're talking about homosexual guilt for sure here, because it's Proust, by the way. The Sodom and Gomorrah, if you saw Ben ask that earlier, the profane is very big in there. The imprisonment of Albertine takes place, all of this. It is reclassified here by its form, because the way that the work and its parts, the works, specifically the partial elements of this work, again, literary machine, partial objects of machines, all that shit, right? They behave like what we talked about before. It's slammed together. The thematics of guilt are not the truth of it, right? So he says here that the declarations, it might be closer to say confessions, the declaration, because it's not external. The declarations are written by the narrator in Search of Lost Time, I think. Ben, you can correct me. But like the confessions of guilt are there as like surface comic material, more or less. God damn, this stupid thing keeps refreshing. I've got to fix that. Does that make sense, Ben? Am I saying that fairly okay? Or am I off on that?
Like with M and Albertine?
Yes.
Yeah, no, you're basically right. Like, I mean, it's not like a comedy. It's not exactly the scene from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly where they are reading Tuco's charges, but it is supposed to sort of be like almost like a joke. Like it is kind of funny.
Yeah, because he's sort of asking here, not what does the guilt mean, right? Because that would presume totality, right? Like this is where we start getting into, I think, the underlying, why are they using this language? Why are they making these claims? This is not a question of what the guilt means, but instead what the guilt does. Like why, like what is the thing it does? And the answer is nothing structural. The guilt is not there structurally. That's not what he's saying. He said the opposite of that. It's actually the thing. So, okay. In the text itself, right? The way guilt works, and we're talking about like the opening pages of Sodom and Gomorrah, like as a thing. Guilt is intertwined in a lot of this, obviously from the language, and yes, homosexuality is very centered to it. So Sodom and Gomorrah, if you can imagine, if you haven't read it, you should be able to put it kind of together. But there is a really interesting thing of like how they start playing, and different characters in different cities. There's the race for the plane, or the cities of the plane, and the way that it interplays with everything. Like the whole point is that it's these surface level things as the literary machine is doing what it's doing. It's producing these elements that seem that they're surface. It's purely surface. It's only there to laugh. It's only there to laugh. Outside of the text, the whole point of doing this psychoanalytically inclined thing that has been centered to Proust for his entire writing period, like still now, it's repressed. It's a lot of repressed self-hatred. And a guy named Painter wrote a biography. It's just very much, he just hates himself. It's this centered thing. And it becomes this like transposition of like Albertine for someone else. And this self-punishing structure where Proust is attacking himself is this idea of, this is how the people have read this book for the longest time.
I've never been 100% on board with the idea that Albertine was an insert for I forget his name, his gay lover.
No, but this is Agostinelli.
I've never been 100% on board with that reading of the.
No, well, that's what they're saying here is it is a schizoid work par excellence. One would say that guilt, the confessions of guilt, are there only to laugh. He is shitting on the idea that it's like this self-insert, that it's not its own thing. That the whole point is that the aesthetic that Klein gave and systematized via Freud, and that has been sort of carried on, is exactly what is there. One would say the depressive position is only a cover for a deeper schizoid. It's the psychoanalyzing and the presuming that there are layers and layers and layers of this behind it. And literally the point, Mandy Moore, there is nothing outside the text. That's the joke. That's the joke, that outside the text, you're supposed to be, oh, he's doing this, there's this. No, there's not. There's not. And that's, just to go back, for the rigors of the law express only apparently the protestation of the one, and find, on the contrary, their true object in the absolution of fragmented universes, where the law reunites nothing. Jesus Christ, it's refreshing every few seconds. I need to fix that. Where the law reunites nothing in whole, but on the contrary measures and distributes the gaps, the dispersions, the bursts of that which draws its innocence from madness. It is why, to the apparent theme of guilt, there is intertwined in Proust a wholly other theme that denies it, that of vegetable ingenuity in the partitioning of sexes, in the encounters of Charlus and the sleeps of Albertine. There, where flowers reign and the innocence of madness reveals itself, proven madness of Charlus or supposed madness of Albertine. The whole point of this is a transvaluation of how the law functions. And again, the law is the whole. The law appears to the protestation apparently protests on behalf of the one, the unity, the whole, the herd, the mass, the average, whatever you want to fucking call it. It is about apparently appears is going to be a word I use a lot here. It only appears to do this, that the fragment is transgression, but that's not the point. Law is here for absolution. Within a fragmented universe, and that's kind of, I'm just like taking the language they use here. Within various fragmented universes, the law doesn't gather into a whole. What it does is the law measures and distributes the gaps, the dispersions, the bursts, the functions. It is a distribution element, nomadically, fundamentally, and it is a rule of dispersion, not a principle of unity that keeps it functioning. That's actually a really good way to describe this, but it's probably a little heady. Okay. I kind of don't want to go into like law here as a thing. One second, I'm just burning through my notes as a thing. Sodom and Gomorrah book has a extreme theme of the botanical, flowers, vegetables, leaves, trees, blah, like plants. The plants are a huge deal, but specifically pollination as a thing, right? The character, the narrator is like becoming a plant as a thing. There's a lot that happens inside of that it's fundamentally there. And this is the other thing that is happening, that he says it's the other side of what is happening. It is intertwined in Proust, a wholly other theme that denies guilt, that gets overlooked by this psychoanalytic presumption that we have this underlying secondary stage, or what really means, and we need to really talk about that as a thing. We really need to get into what's happening behind the scenes in their head. What are they, blah, blah. None of that. None of that's the point. Breaking that apart, fuck it. We don't give a shit about any of that stuff. The whole point is this other plant overture, where Juppien, Charles Juppien as an encounter is narrated by this weird moment of this bumblebee making it. It's not the bumblebee. It's not the hornet or the wasp and the orchid, but it's an orchid being pollinated by this bumblebee in a really weird way. That this sexuality is vegetal contingency, right? That is not above or below the person. It's just a thing alongside the other things. That's the whole point, right? The sentence in all of this needs both guilt and vegetal. It needs all of this because it is distinguishing them. That's what the whole is doing. The whole and its parts, it's all distinguishing, laying out, placing all of this, setting its meaning over all of it. It is distributing. Vegetal sexuality, yes. Yes. Vegetal sexuality. Plants. Plants fuck. They don't really have a lot of guilt. Pretty sure I have a bunch of peppermint outside. The bees have been going nuts. Super orgy. And I've been going out there and shaming them every day because it's disgusting. These fucking disgusting bees and their flowers. It's just disgusting. Fucking everywhere. Getting their pollen everywhere. Money shots. Just disgusting. Just like going, not thinking. Well, it's the point of having it brought up here is very specific. Again, they are trying to counter what is, I would argue, the main thread in Proust scholarship. Like the fundamental thing. It's just a self-insert story of him dealing with his own sexuality. You can tell from these scenes that he really means this other stuff because of this symbolic connection to this and blah, blah. And they're like, no, that's all surface. It's all bullshit. None of this. It's none of what you're saying in any way. None of that. It's none of that. Instead, it's about how the total, the complete, and everything is sort of built and functions. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, everyone? Some vegetables fuck the earth. This is true. It's disgusting.
Well, I think it is kind of funny as an interesting use of vegetal sexuality too, when talking about like specifically Sodom and Gomorrah, because that's where M first discovers the homosexuality both of Charlus and Albertine, and like he's sort of moving between both circles as like the one who is he has like lovers that are also lesbians that he is insanely jealous of, and then he also like notices can't stop noticing all of the male sexuality within the French aristocrats either. So it's sort of like he's the one going between the two, sort of like as the pollinator.
Yes. It's a good book. Worth reading, by the way, for anyone who's having trouble. Whole in Its Parts is just excellent. Like, genuinely, just very, very good. Okay. So we move. Next little paragraph. Man, we're going to be moving into chapter 2, like in a couple weeks. Crazy. So Proust said that the whole is produced, that it is itself produced as a part beside the parts, that it neither unifies nor totalizes, but which applies itself to them by instituting only aberrant communications between non-communicating vessels. Transversal unities between elements that keep all their difference in their own dimensions. It's such a fucking crisp way of saying it. Sorry, it's so good. I'll get to it. Thus, in the railway journey, there was never totality of what one sees, nor unity of points of view, but only in the traversal that the traveler, dazed, traces from one window to the other, to bring together, to recanvass the intermittent and opposite fragments. To bring together, to recanvass. This is what Joyce called re-embody. The body without organs is produced as a whole, but in its place in the process of production. Beside the parts, it neither unifies nor totalizes. When it applies itself to them, folds back on them, it induces traversal communications, transfinite summations, polyvocal and transcursive inscriptions on its own surface, where the functional cuts of partial objects cease not to be recut by the cuts of signifying chains and those of a subject that orients itself there. The whole not only coexists with the parts, but is contiguous to them, itself produced apart, and applying itself to them. Geneticists show it in their way by saying that amino acids are assimilated individually in the cell, then are arranged in the suitable order by a mechanism analogous to a mold in which the characteristic lateral chain of each acid places itself in its own position. As a general rule, the problem of part-whole relations remains as badly posed by mechanism and by classical vitalism, so long as one considers the whole as totality derived from the parts, or as originary totality from which the parts emanate, or as dialectical totalization. Mechanism, no more than vitalism, grasped the nature of machines of desire and the double necessity of introducing production into desire as much as desire into mechanics. This is so good. It's hard for me to even say how fucking good this shit is. That's so good. We're just going to dive in because this is just great. We're going to go first with the Proust thing. Whole is produced, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Here's the fire. It's the whole, which applies itself to the parts by instituting only aberrant communications between non-communicating vessels. So, if I tell you a series of stories, and then at the end I go, and all of these happened to a guy named Steve, and that student, Alfred Einstein, whatever I say, right? I have created a whole that has now encompassed those parts, and you slam those fucking things together. And now the meaning between them, that generates something else. This is the aberrant communication between non-communicating vessels. They're non-communicating. They don't, the parts, this is why In Search of Lost Time is so good. There's nothing. It is absent of larger meaning. And I don't say that in a negative sense. It is absent of larger meaning. It's impossible to summarize it because it is absent of larger meaning. But it is a book. I've got two of them. I've got a version. One sec, I'll show. Because that's a visual demonstration. I could read you any section from this. We're going to do a little bit. This is my remembrance of things past. I know. It's not In Search of Lost Time. I know. I'm terrible. Each one of these has, I think the first has 3. Yeah. Swan's Way, Within a Budding Grove, Guermante's Way, Cities of the Plain, The Captive, The Sweet Cheat Gone, and The Past Recaptured. I could read literally anywhere in here, and it does not... I don't even know if I'd be able to understand, like, where it sits in the story. And I've read it twice. I've read it twice. Once in the last couple of years because of this fucking stupid book and because of fucking Deleuze. When Albertine returned to my room, she was wearing a garment of black satin, which had the effect of making her seem paler, of turning her into the pallid, ardent Parisian, etiolated by want of fresh air, by the atmosphere of crowds, and perhaps by vicious habits, whose eyes seemed more restless because they were not brightened by any color in her cheeks. I think I could tell you that is, I couldn't tell you which book that happened in, because it doesn't have meaning itself. Not really. How it gets meaning is it's part of, that was part of City of the Plain. Before we move into The Prisoner, The Captive. It was part of that. Now that I know this, now that part exists, I'm able to understand it in context. It's a great way we say, I'm going to make things that didn't coagulate before, or puzzle pieces that didn't fit together, or things that didn't communicate. I'm going to make them do it now and slam things together. And now I'm going to make it make sense. I'm going to make sense out of the whole thing. Like forcefully, just rape the shit out of the parts. That's how it works.
Have you read the new translations? The new ones that Penguin put out like a few years ago?
No.
They're very good.
They are?
Incredibly good. Good.
I'm not buying another set. I'm not buying another set. That is a very beautiful, oh, wow. That is a beautiful set, Arachne. They're very good books, but again, any page, any paragraph doesn't communicate fundamentally with the paragraph before it until we say it's the paragraph before it. Oh, well, now I know and I can relate it. Now these things that we're not communicating do. Traversal unities between elements that keep all their difference in their own dimensions. That's the thing. The declaration that we all sort of believe in totalities only alongside, as a thing alongside, a next to it, right? That's next to it. And Proust talks about this as like a retrospective unity that arises after the fact, that this is produced. This is something that is applied to an ensemble already made. It is a piece made separately, born of inspiration, born of that lightning in a bottle moment as a thing, right? That's the whole point. One sec. The whole point is that, like, I'm trying to think of the line on dimensions. I mean, this is transversality. This is Guattari. If you ever get a chance to read his book, on transversality, Guattari's book is incredible. Yeah, man, you need to play a bunch of notes in a row to figure out what key a song is. You need to again, things that are not in resonance are in resonance only when we produce the whole alongside them. And the whole is not a thing that unifies, but it is a thing that creates those resonances. Right now, you're experiencing this, and you're experiencing it in time. As you know, I am Brooks, and I am talking through sections of this book. And supposedly I have a concept of what I'm talking about, but all of these things are making it so the sentences I'm saying, you're forcing together with other things, even if you don't understand it. And I see people that don't understand it. That's what I do too. This is what we do. The whole point of this is that this is how we do these things, right? the thing that is about this, and it's Hurley's line here is one of the things that pisses me off. Hurley's line is that the whole itself is a product produced as nothing more than a part alongside other parts. I hate that. In every way. There's like so much wrong with it, but nothing more than is not in the French. It is not nothing more than. It is something more than, and it's so much different. It's not deflated in this way. It's not about demoting. Their point is that being produced alongside the parts makes the whole material. Hey, we have a unity. I'm Brooks. How you doing? No, that's just an illusion of you. No, fuck you. The whole was produced. The whole is produced. The material, me, is a whole produced alongside the other parts. It is a non-transcendent thing. It is in experience. Fuck you, Hurley. Goddamn, sorry. I get pissy about it. But it's like, the whole point is that, and as I'm saying it, this is the whole point, bring it all together, is that all of it together, all the words I'm saying are coalescing in some semblance of a part alongside the others. You can take it as, and we've commonly understood this as, I'm helping you understand a thing. But that's not what I'm doing. I am speaking and babbling at no end, and I am a fucking dumb motherfucker. I have no fucking education on this. You're listening to me for no reason whatsoever other than I've convinced you in some way that I'm doing this. And what is happening is, as I'm doing that, as I'm talking and as you're doing that, you have in this produced alongside all the things I'm saying, the thing that unifies them and allows them to be spoken together. And if you make the mistake of assuming I'm making a point and not just sort of continually talking and continually producing a whole alongside the parts materially, then you're missing the point of the book. Yeah, Rizzo knows it. This is a materialist and immanent psychiatry, which is the subtitle of both these books. Is Anti-Oedipus. It's not an immaterialist psychology. It's meant to be material, and that's like the jam, right? And it is the other side that is worth mentioning here, and it's Hurley fucks this completely. The last line: keep all the difference in their own dimensions. These are different registers. These are not. Everything is not like on equal footing here. That's not how it works. Things are in different parts of the entire process, even though the process is happening at once. Read your Marx. Read your fucking Marx. A dimension is about the thing that traversality cuts across. Boundaries enclose. This is not a boundary. If you suck at this and you translate it as boundaries, you fucked up. Proper dimension is the fucking last line. I'll get to it, Arachne. So the difference in dimensions is the point. There's a geometry here. This is Riemannian space. This is manifold space. Manifold space. I wonder if he's got a book that uses, God damn it. Sorry. Just fucking translation pisses me off. Arachne has a fucking question somewhere. Locality, when described, is represented by transcendence. No, not necessarily. It is represented transcendently, but it doesn't mean that locality is transcendent, or the description of it either. In France, they call air fryers manifoldulators. That's just good. Some quantum physics people would claim locality is transcendent. Good for them. I would argue that they don't know what locality is, Like it doesn't matter. I would have arguments there, but that's fine. Well, shocking thing you've ever said, Brooks, was the other day in our AI essay where you said something nice about Hurley's translation. I try to be kind on occasion. I try. Let's continue. And this is, by the way, this next line is one of my favorite ways of describing what happens here, because this process, again, is not that I'm giving you a thought. It is not that you experience a unity and then it kind of moves. This is always being put together, and the whole is part of what is enabling you to produce the meaning you've got. And how? What's a good example? Well, like any good fucking autistic socialist, let's talk about trains. Thus, in the railway journey, there is never totality of what one sees, nor unity of points of view, but only in the traversal that the traveler, dazed, traces from one window to the other. Have you ever ridden on a train? This makes sense. I'm just going to leave it there. Like, this is from a very particular book. They cite it, and you can find it, but it's Baalbek, Journey to Baalbek in Journey of the Blues. I can't remember. There's some phrasing around it. Doesn't matter. Stories about a guy in a train who sees a sunrise appear on one side of the carriage, and the track curves, and then he sees it on the other side. And he is able to assemble an understanding of this that doesn't make him think that there are two suns. Does anyone here understand that there aren't two suns? Do you get that thing, that there aren't two suns in that story? Why? There's a lot of people probably that don't. That's fine. That's fine. But the thing is, you may say, oh, well, he just saw the sun and then he saw the sun again. No, there is not really a unity or totality of what is seen here. His view is broken fundamentally by the train, by different windows in it. There's two negations instead that sort of do the thing, right? There's two negations. And that process is not a unity of points of view, because it wouldn't be a subjective synthesis. That's not the thing here. That's not the perspectivist solution or any of that. This is not the conversation. It's different than that. There's something else happening here. There's something else happening. Only in the transversal, that the traveler dazed traces from one window to the other, to bring together, to recanvas the intermittent and opposite fragments. This is Proust here, I think. Actually, I think all of this is Proust. I can't remember which book it is. Ben, do you know which book this is? I should fucking know these things. I need to have this stuff in my fucking notes. It's terrible.
Unfortunately, for as much as I love these books, I haven't
I should have notes.
I haven't hit them the way that I hit the Bible when I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I probably still know the fuck out of the Bible, to be honest with you.
It's I think it's the past recaptured. I think it's towards the end, because it's the train ride. Where is the train ride? Oh God, I just love his writing. I need to stop. I'll just start. The narrator of this wanted a total view. Can't get one. We are finite local beings. We're finite local things. How is he able to understand that it's the same sun? It's because of the way that they connected, the context of it. The point is that the labor of the reproach, the recontextualization post hoc as a thing is real. And it's productive. It's material. Even if the totality never actually shows up. It doesn't matter. To bring together, to recanvas, this is what Joyce called re-embody. The body without organs. If you want, by the way, one of the best essays on this, Smith's essay on the body without organs, which is here on the QC somewhere, literally is about the rest of this paragraph and builds out, if you ever get confused about what the BWO is, fundamentally changed my view of everything. The body without organs is produced as a whole, but in its place, hic nunc, here and now, as they said, in the process of production, beside the parts, it neither unifies nor totalizes. There you go. The whole they've been discussing is the BWO. The whole. And it's a lot. When we first met the BWO with our toe and all that stuff, it was talked about, made there in its place, but it's unproductive. It is unconsumable. It is catatonic as a surface and recoils from the machines, constituting this anti-production, imminent to production system. But as this has gone on, it started there. But we've kind of seen that it is a product. And it's a product right at this point where producing and product are the same thing. Now we have a third sort of determining place. It is the whole. It is the whole produced alongside the parts onto which production is registered. These are all different registers. These are not alternatives. These are, I would say, closer to a sequence, but more in line with the syntheses. These are things that happen to themselves imminently as a thing, in its place, process of production as a thing. This is the qualifier that they're talking about, right? That's the produces as a whole, in its place, process of production. Beside the parts, it neither unifies nor totalizes. That's the whole thing. And when it applies itself to them, folds back on them, not falls, not say, Rob, it's really bad translation, folds back on them, it induces traversal communications, transfinite summations, polyvocal and transcursive inscriptions on its own surface, where the functional cuts of partial objects cease not to be recut by the cuts of signifying chains, and those of a subject that orients itself there. Okay. It's like super dense. It's super dense, these motherfuckers. What's I can't tell if you guys in Discord are talking to me, so I'm just going to ignore. At me if you need something. Okay. There are four sort of results of things that are being listed out here, okay? The transversal communications. These are the transversal, like, crossings of these elements, cross dimensions, that are already sort of played with. The example I love that he gives is in one clinic, there were better outcomes for patients. And I'm oversimplifying a lot here. But it was like they have the same underlying, meetings every week. They have the same paperwork. They have the same conversations, all that. But nurses and doctors be fucking a lot more. And he was like, oh, that actually, it's this transverse. There's a transversality in that, because in their pillow talk, more or less, they'd be like, oh, Mr. Johnson's being so difficult this week, or the patient in that room has been awful, or whatever they may say. Those things, these contingent conversations, these transversal communications, fundamentally changed how doctors and everything sort of worked, because it existed outside of a dimensionality in that sense. So Guattari's thing up front here, we've done that. Transfinite summations. This is Cantor. This is like nerd Cantor shit. I don't even know how to go into this as a thing. Things are infinite but determinate in a way that the sum of things is itself not totality, because the totality itself would end up being the sum of things that needs to be in its own. Like there's infinities that do not enclose on everything. Cantor, it's Cantor, and it's my brain doesn't want to do it right now. So don't ask me. We have math people here who are smarter. Just talk to them. They know this stuff better than me. Polyvocal and transcursive inscriptions. Polyvocal is in opposition to biunivocal. Biunivocal is a one-to-one correspondence to things. Polyvocal does not have that. It's the many to one or many. And it's a big shift as we start getting into that. The transcursive inscriptions is not discursive. It's not through discourse, not running through a sequence of signifiers towards meaning. It's instead running across signification. Transcursive, not discursive. No, this is not odd, unusually gendered people who write in linear language lines. It's not cursive trans. Trans means across. It means across gender when we use it. We tend to have colloquialized this. Transcursive here means across the cursive, across the mark, across the coding elements. Okay. We've had this. I'm not in the mood. I'm just going to get so many hate fucking comments. Like in about 2 chapters, I'm so nervous. Ben remembers, don't you, Ben? Ben's like, leave me the fuck out of this. So that's the first part is they're naming a handful of functions and things that are like produced there, like tools that are part of that sort of thing, right? And then we have the registration. On its own surface, where the functional cuts of partial objects cease not to be recut by the cuts of signifying chains, and those of a subject that orients itself there. These are all three syntheses put together, okay? The second, on its own surface, where the functional cuts of partial objects cease not to be recut by the cuts of signifying chains. This is registration, okay? This is registration as a thing. Everyone following that? It's easy. The stacks of cuts happen on the surface. There's the functional cuts of partial objects. That's the connective syntheses, right? The cuts of signifying chains. This is the Lacanian coupre, the cuts of signifying chains. And then the third is the residual subject that orients itself there. That finds itself and finds its state and is made alongside all of these things. Okay. Where is the body without organs? Is it like all around within? It's part of the entire process. In fact, it exists where it's made. You're not going to be able to point to it because that would be the opposite. It is not a metaphor. No. When I talk about, Kali, do you play any video games? Are you aware of video games? I don't know. I try not to presume. I always try to talk about this in terms of like League of Legends or Dota or any video game, really. Nico Atsumi. I don't know what that is. Great. Every video game has its like literal code. It's written in certain ways. The language is there, the math is there, and it's all set up. Dota, for example, has like more than 100 heroes, hundreds of combinations of items and things. And then for each hero, there's dozens or hundreds of combinations and ways to build their specific sort of growth patterns as you play. Like there's an insane way to play. And then on top of it, there's all this possibility space of how you move in the world. And these are just, and again, none of that's written. These are just the tools being sort of proffered. The first day someone plays any of these games, the first time one person plays it, they're playing and they're figuring it out and they're trying to see what the possibility space is. Then you have a lot more people. Then you have a lot more people. And at some point, someone goes, oh, this character, because of how the mathematics around how they grow and how their hit pattern works or how their abilities seem to function, this person plays better in a support role. There's no such thing as a support role in Dota. That's not a thing that's in the code. That's a thing that is just how people play. How do you get to that point? Well, you're at a point where a meta has been made, an understanding of what things are in relation to each other for this game that's never written anywhere. And it doesn't really pop up in a way that you can point to it like, oh, there's the meta, because it's always changing and it's kind of held in, how to put it, abeyance. It's just outside of the game always, and people are able to refer, but it's definitely there. It materially affects how every single person plays this game. This is the BWO. This is what that is. This is the weird moment where things start to somehow come together and be registered and fall back on production itself. So people do things in different orders. Making rules within game. It's very similar to it's the conversation within the vicious circle about how we make rules for games. I think of, there's great examples of chess and Go where people did dick things that are not in the rules. Like in Go where, the famous one where the guy, did a play that forced overnight. He had a chance to sort of figure out what his next move would be because he knew what he did forced his opponent to do a very particular action, and his opponent resigned rather than let overnight happen. There was no rule against it. There was no rule to do this. This was just a way of sort of understanding the rules from a meta perspective. This is again that it's stepping outside of as a thing. Right?
There's so famously during the Soviet Union, the Soviets are passing the World Chess Championship back and forth between themselves, and the way they're managing this, not just having like a strong state-sponsored chess training program, which is incredibly helpful, but they're also cheating, not cheating, giving each other advice during the matches, cheating before the tournaments are even, like, the matches are even drawn up. The Soviet players that are going are determined, and what they will result when they play against each other has already been determined by the government in order to prevent, because chess tournaments are about scoring the most points. It's not like you don't play necessarily heads up. There's too many people. It's like round robin, and whoever scores the most points out of 12 matches or whatever is the winner. So like the Soviets will agree to draws with themselves, or like agree to throw matches to themselves in order to make one person win the tournament. And they were doing this kind of metagaming for like 20 to 25 years.
It's a completely different understanding of how things function. And again, it's that, is there a point where you can point at, oh, here's where the meta was built? No, that's not really a thing that we have as a function. It's not really how it works. It plays differently. Bloop, blip, bop, boop, bip, bop. The term transfinite summation itself does not ring any bells. I mean, it's going to be an awkward French version. The mathematical operation of summing is the point. Summation is the point. So like, things are added together. Like, I feel like I don't want to get super into set theory as a thing, but like, summarization is about set theory as a thing, as though the surface is producing abstracts of the material inscribed on it. The entire point here is that the sets are created as part of this, but the sum is not what actually reunites the parts. The whole point of transfinite summations, transfinies, is this sort of interplay in that direction of things. It's as I read it. And again, there's a lot here. We're going to be getting into it. Don't worry. Cantor's coming. Do not worry. But that is, the induction ordinals, cardinals are a thing, and it's about the summation of them. They're making a very particular point that it is not the orderly summation that is produced here. That's not the point. It's the transfinis, the transfinite is the deal. Yeah. The whole not only coexists with the parts, it is contiguous to them, itself produced apart and applying itself to them. This is now going to be DNA genetics. Read Susan Oyama. Geneticists show it in their way by saying that, quote, amino acids are assimilated individually in the cell, then are arranged in a suitable order by a mechanism analogous to a mold in which the characteristic lateral chain of each acid places itself in its own position. They're making like an evidentiary point that this is kind of how shit works, right? And I mean, as far as I'm aware, again, they're using very particular language to what is pre-modern, as we have an 70-year-old, 80-year-old understandings of this stuff. But their version of it is choosing the right path, I think would be how I'd phrase it, right? This is, Raymond Rier is kind of speaking through this, genesis of life, or the genesis of, God damn it, we have a reading of this too. Brooks, you need to do better. The fuck, Brooks? Genesis of living forms. It's very good, by the way. Very good. I need to do more videos on Rier. It's very, very, very good. Well, thanks for coming, Ebzui. I kind of just want to leave it because it's more or less just them saying like the whole is a mold that does not shape. It doesn't shape it. That's not what a mold does. It is instead a site locally, to go back to another question, at which self-placement occurs. It's an odd version of things, right? But it is, again, how we more understand genetics now and how we understand how these things sort of come together. Ugh. Limitable potential. It doesn't really hold the actual metas. I don't think it does not hold. Well, so there is no such thing as an actual meta. Let's start with that. that language is going to be real different. Is there an actual virtual? That's fun. So we gotta be careful there with some of that language, but yeah, whatever. But to continue, because it's now over past 2 hours. As a general rule, the problem of part-whole relations remains as badly posed by mechanism and by classical vitalism so long as one considers the whole as totally derived from the parts, or as originary totality from which its parts emanate, or as dialectical totalization. Mechanism, no more than vitalism, grasped the nature of the machines of desire and the double necessity of introducing production into desire as much as desire into mechanics. Philosophy, for a very long time, and you see this a lot still today, has a problem. Is everything mechanistic or is it vitalistic? Now you tend to, the analytic pro-science Reddit types tend to go very much in that. Oh yeah, no, it's mechanistic and it's determinate. We can measure things. The problem is like, well, yeah, but how do you get to the whole? It's actually like the states of affairs. Like if you want to go back, like Hume, Searle, all these guys, Kant, states of affairs versus bodies versus thing. Like how do we understand a totality of a thing? How do you come to be a thing? Like an organism? How? Because you certainly function as one. What are the mechanics of this? How does that work? Well, the problem is that the organism, which is sort of the organic, the vitalistic view of things, doesn't have a good grasp of things in the molecular. You have a huge problem of how things come to be, because if it's vitalistically based, you're kind of dismissing the mechanical side of things, the mechanistic. Vice versa, the mechanistic doesn't really have a good vitalist handle. Boy, if only we had a really interesting way to talk about how the whole and its parts comes together. I don't know, like we have these organs, but how do organs get organized? They need a body. But maybe, and so you have, and again, I'm just going to pop it into the QC, organs, and it is This is one of my favorite pieces. What is the body without organs? Machine and organism in Anti-Oedipus. And it is getting posted right now in Discord. If only you were here. Discord.gg/DGQC. You can join anytime. Come say hi. And I'm just going to read, and we're going to be done, because I'm just going to read from the piece. Boop, 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 boop. Close you, close you. Hello. In the 2 volumes which make up Capitalism and Schizophrenia, which Anti-Oedipus and Mille Plateau, by the way, Deleuze and Guattari propose new concepts of machine and organism. The problem of the relationship between machines and organisms has a long philosophical history. This essay treats their work as a contribution to this debate. It is argued that their solution to this problem is found in their difficult concept of the body without organs, a concept given some much needed clarification in the essay. And this is one of my favorite essays on the BWO. If you have questions about BWO, go read that fucking essay. Go read it. The first section details Deleuze and Guattari's concept of the machine, examining the ways in which it differs from a traditional concept as described by Kagelheim, which is, again, what they're doing with machine is different enough. What they do with organism, different enough, but they're making specific moves. 2, they do not, 1, their machines do not have predictable movements, but instead produce events. 2, they do not have a purpose. 3, they are able to reproduce themselves. The second section details their conception of the organism through their account of Geoffroy Saint-Hilaire. 1, organisms are bodies which normalize and which create hierarchies. 2, they also do not have a purpose. And 3, they have a unity of composition. The final section argues that their concept of the body without organs shows us how to understand the relation between the 2 transformed concepts and defines the body without organs as the becoming machine of the organism. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's my favorite. Read that article. It's very, 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 very good. I don't know how else to describe it except by saying that over and over and over. No one's live. No one's here. No one exists, I guess. So I'm not going to be sending YouTube anywhere. I'm going to be probably streaming later tonight, possibly tomorrow. I've got a bunch of shit I'm trying to take care of. And I'm trying to finish off and start recording and getting out my 15 video series on all of the ways that Attack on Titan is actually simply a retelling of Nietzschean Übermensch and the will to power. It's very good. It's very good. The D in DGQC stands for dumb. This is true, actually. It's the G stands for guillotine, which is weird. Everyone thinks it's guattari. I don't know why. But everyone have a lovely time. It has been great, as always. If you like what I do, want to support what I do, discord.gg/DGQC is the best thing. Come join us live, and then you can yell at me and say terrible things or wonderful things. You can also head over to patreon.com/DGQC, $5 a month, cup of coffee, great. Streamelements.com/tip.tip/DGQC. Just support. It's always good. It helps. It just helps. Just super fucking helps. But with that, I'm going to send you nowhere and thank all of you guys for joining us on YouTube. Bye-bye. See you soon enough. There. Should be clear of the